Have you ever wondered why some women, silent, still, unbothered by the noise of validation, are the very ones men cannot stop thinking about? She does not chase, she does not perform, she does not strive to be seen. And yet, she is unforgettable, haunting, even, like a scent from a past life, or a dream that refuses to fade. She is the woman who no longer orbits around the gravitational pull of desire. She is not anti-man. No, far from it. But she has peeled herself from the clutches of needing to be desired. She has entered the cave of herself, faced the serpents, danced with the shadows, and returned, not untouched, but unowned. In Jungian terms, she has integrated her anima and animus. She no longer projects her inner masculine onto men, nor does she seek completion in the external. She has retrieved her power from the unconscious and now wears it, not as armor, but as silence. And this silence, this profound detachment, becomes the very thing that draws men to her. Because she becomes the mirror they cannot read, the riddle they cannot solve, the sacred text written in a language they've never learned but ache to decipher. She holds the archetype of the high priestess. She knows, and yet she does not explain. She sees, but she does not rush to fix. She feels deeply, but you would never know unless you earned your way into her presence, not by force, but by resonance. Men may call her mysterious, intimidating, cold. But these words are projections, mirrors reflecting their own unprocessed longing. What they sense in her is not merely beauty, nor charm, nor wit. It is the presence of someone who has died to herself and been reborn as something freer, older, more elemental. Someone who no longer seeks approval, and thus, becomes magnetic to those still trapped in its pursuit. She is the woman who once believed she needed a man to feel chosen, who once softened her voice, shrunk her presence, and overgave in the hopes of being worthy. But pain has a way of waking us. Betrayal, silence, being overlooked, these are not curses, but initiations. And she answered them. She did not just survive them. She alchemized them. Now, when a man enters her orbit, he feels it before he understands it. His body tightens. His breath shortens. There is something in her that calls to his unconscious, the feminine he has ignored in himself. And yet, he fears her, because she reminds him of everything he has not yet owned. She is not here to complete him. She is not here to save him. She is not even here to teach him. But in her presence, the illusion of power collapses. His masks feel heavy. His noise, unnatural. The game, useless. Because she cannot be gamed. She cannot be persuaded, seduced, or impressed. Only met. If you are a man watching this, you may have met her. Perhaps you're thinking about her now, the one who did not need you, and somehow that made you want her more. But wanting is not the same as meeting. And meeting her requires a descent into yourself. And if you are a woman, and you feel the resonance of this voice inside you, know this: your power does not lie in being wanted. It lies in being whole. In making peace with the parts of you that felt too much, too quiet, too deep, too knowing. The parts you were told made you unlovable. They are your gold. The world has long trained women to trade their inner voice for external affection. To water down their instincts to appear safe, to abandon their intuition for a seat at someone else's table. But those days are dying. And the women who rise now are not loud, they are sovereign. They no longer beg to be chosen, because they have chosen themselves. Not out of bitterness, not out of pride, but out of remembrance of who they were before the world told them who to be. And so, when she walks away, she does not do so to punish. She simply returns to where her soul can breathe, where the silence is not cold, but sacred, where she is not someone's fantasy, but her own truth. And men, some will chase her not out of love, but out of confusion, out of a desire to possess what they do not understand. But she is not a possession. She is not a role. She is not here to be claimed like a prize at the end of a race. She is a frequency, a force, a fire. To stand beside her, you must first stand within yourself. and that is the work most will avoid. The truth is, men don't crave her because she fits their image of the perfect woman. They crave her because she breaks it. She disturbs the illusion. She unearths the longing. She calls forth the man he could be, if only he dared to meet her with presence, not possession. And for many, that is too much. For many, it is easier to label her as difficult than to admit their own inadequacy. It is easier to call her lonely than to witness her wholeness. Easier to say she must be hurt than to recognize she is healed. Because a healed woman is not easy to hold. She does not confuse chaos with chemistry. She does not settle for breadcrumbs in the name of patience. She does not light herself on fire to keep someone else warm. And that, in the deepest marrow of it all, is why men ache for her. Not because she needs them, but because she reminds them of the love they have not yet found within themselves. She is no longer a mirror for a man's projections, no longer the stage upon which he plays out his unhealed wounds. When he looks at her, he sees not the sweet compliance he has been taught to expect, but a stillness that confronts him. A silence that does not beg, does not apologize, does not explain. It is a silence forged in fire. A silence that says, I have met myself in the dark. Have you? And this is where the dynamic shifts. Because what most men desire, truly, beneath the scripts of culture and fantasy, is not obedience. It's the feminine as mystery, as source. But to encounter the feminine as source is terrifying to the uninitiated masculine. He who has not descended into his own unconscious will only see in her a storm, not a sanctuary. She becomes the embodiment of the numinous, that which is both beautiful and terrifying. As Rudolf Otto once described the numinous, mysterium tremendum et fascinans. A mystery that repels and fascinates simultaneously. This is her energy. Not something you date. Something you kneel before. And yet, there's a paradox. Because while she does not need a man, she has not shut herself off from love. Her heart is not closed, it is simply sacred. She does not give it away to fill an absence. She gives it only to those who have earned the right to hold it. And earning it does not look like charm, wealth, or performance. It looks like presence, responsibility, inner work. She can see through the masks, not because she tries, but because she has removed her own. She has confronted her shadow, and in doing so, she no longer fears the shadows of others. She recognizes when a man's desire is a need for rescue, a hunger for mothering, or a distraction from his own pain. And she does not judge it, but she does not engage it either. There is a kind of grief a man feels when he meets a woman like her and realizes he cannot conquer her. That his usual tactics, control, seduction, withdrawal, performance, fall flat. And this grief is sacred, because it is not about losing her. It is about meeting the void within himself. She becomes the threshold. To move toward her is to move inward. And that is the secret he may not want to admit. It's not her he desires. It is who he becomes in her presence. The truth is, the feminine in her stirs the forgotten feminine within him, the part that longs to feel, to yield, to surrender to meaning. And if he has spent his life disowning these qualities, the confrontation becomes unbearable. It is easier to run, easier to find someone more malleable, someone who will reflect back his ego rather than expose it. But those who stay, those rare few who have done their own shadow work, who know their own capacity for destruction and choose to love anyway, these men do not crave her from emptiness. They meet her from wholeness. They do not want to own her. They want to witness her, to stand beside her, not above her, to protect the sacred, not possess it. And she knows the difference, because she has lived through the counterfeit versions, the ones who romanticized her power until they felt small next to it, the ones who said, "You're too intense," when she spoke her truth, the ones who asked her to dim so they could shine. But a woman who has reclaimed herself no longer negotiates her depth. She does not shrink her essence to make another feel safe. She does not trade authenticity for attachment. She is no longer available for half-loves and almosts. If you are watching this and feel something stirring inside you, whether you are man or woman, let this truth land. The energy she embodies is not exclusive to her. It is within you. It is a call to return to your own wholeness. Women, you are not too much. You are not too complicated. You are not too deep. You are simply sacred. And any connection that asks you to become less is not love. It is control wrapped in longing. And men, if you feel drawn to her, pause. Ask yourself, do you want her, or do you want to feel something? Are you looking for a partner, or a bomb? Are you ready to see her, or do you just want to be seen? Because she will not pretend. She will not perform. She will not carry you across the threshold you refuse to step through. But if you are ready, if you are truly ready, then meeting her is no longer about conquest. It is about remembrance of the divine feminine within yourself, of the truth that strength is not in control, but in vulnerability, not in domination, but in devotion. And that's the great paradox of masculine longing. The more she lets go of needing you, the more your soul reaches for her, because she no longer wants to be chosen. She wants to be met. There is something ancient in her now, something the modern world cannot name but the soul recognizes. She does not move with urgency, nor does she explain her silences. She is slow like earth, and deliberate like ritual. To love her is not to consume her, but to revere her, like one would revere the ocean. You do not own the ocean. You enter it, if it allows. And for those still living from the surface of themselves, her energy is unbearable. Not because she demands more, but because she awakens more. More presence. More responsibility. More honesty. And above all, more intimacy. Not the kind that occurs in bedrooms, but in the brutal honesty of being seen. Because when she looks at you, she sees not just the curated self, but the abandoned child beneath. The terrified boy performing manhood. The unspoken grief. The ache behind the confidence. She sees it all, and does not flinch. That is her power. She does not turn away. But do not mistake her compassion for permission. She will not let you bleed on her altar. She will not carry your work for you. She has buried too many versions of herself for the comfort of others to hand over her peace now. She has died once before, when she betrayed herself for love. She will not do it again. This is what makes her so rare, so dangerous to the old systems. Because she cannot be manipulated by fear anymore. She is not afraid of being alone. Not afraid of being misunderstood. She has made peace with the desert of solitude and found water in her own soul. To those who see her as a threat, understand this, she does not hate men. She honors them. But she has stopped abandoning herself to be near them. She does not wage war with the masculine. She simply will not kneel to it in false hierarchy. Carl Jung once said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This woman is transformation. And if you are not ready to be transformed, you will experience her as chaos. But if you are willing to let go of the illusion, of dominance, of ego, of certainty, then she becomes the very doorway through which your soul begins to breathe. It's no coincidence that men feel haunted by her absence. She stirs the part of them that longs for wholeness, for depth, for something real in a world of endless performance. They may try to recreate her in others, but it never quite fits. Because she wasn't just a woman, she was a mirror. And once you've seen your reflection in truth, no illusion will satisfy again. Some will call her hard. Others will call her holy. But those are only labels used by those who cannot hold the complexity of what she represents. For she is not soft in the way society teaches women to be. She is soft like thunder, like velvet over steel, like a temple with no door. She is not here to play a role. She is here to embody a frequency. If you are a woman hearing this and your heart is pounding, understand, this is not a version of womanhood you become. It is who you already are underneath the layers, the masks, the pleasing, the pretending, the waiting. You do not need to add anything, only to remember, to unbecome everything that was never yours to carry. And if you are a man still listening, still feeling, still willing to sit with the discomfort she evokes, there is hope for you yet, because your desire is not wrong. It is simply misdirected when you chase her instead of awakening yourself. What you crave is not her body, her voice, her gaze. What you crave is the home you felt in her presence, the home you must now build within yourself. To earn her love is not to win her over. It is to do the work, to meet your own shadow, to hold your own grief, to stop seeking mothers in lovers, to stop fearing the feminine both in her and in you. This is not romance. This is resurrection. And perhaps one day you will meet again. And this time you will not approach with hunger, but with peace. Not with need, but with knowing. Not to take, but to offer. And she will see it in your eyes. She will not need a vow. She will not ask for proof. She will simply feel the resonance. And if it's true, she will open, like the moon to the ocean, like fire to breath. But until that day, she remains devoted not to you, but to truth, to her soul, to the path that called her out of the illusions and into the sacred silence of herself. She does not need a man, but she has space for one who remembers how to revere. She lives now as a woman who has tasted the bitterness of betrayal, the ache of abandonment, the silent nights filled with self-doubt and ache. But instead of closing, she cracked, and from the cracks, the self poured in. There is no longer desperation in her steps, no hunger in her love. She offers without needing to be received. She speaks without demanding to be heard. She exists in a frequency few can match, because it is not based on how much attention she gets, but how deeply rooted she is in her own soul. Men have learned to chase energy that affirms them, that flatters their image, reflects their strength, echoes their desire. But she offers none of that. She offers presence, stillness, truth. And for the ego, this is starvation. Jung wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Many men call her departure bad luck. They call her silence cold. But what they don't see is that she was their invitation, their sacred mirror. And instead of accepting the call, they resisted, clung, projected. She doesn't return to explain. She doesn't circle back to soften the wound. Because now she knows, when a man is ready, no explanation is needed. And when he's not, no explanation will ever be enough. To love her now is to abandon the narratives of conquest. She cannot be owned, only experienced. And only those who have journeyed to their own edges, who have faced the death of persona, can feel at home beside her. Her energy is no longer transactional. She is not waiting for reciprocity. She gives because it is her nature. But she protects herself because it is her duty. Her feminine energy is not about softness without boundaries. It is softness with discernment. Like water that flows freely, but will carve through stone if pressured. And this is why men crave her but cannot hold her. Because to hold her is to hold paradox, vulnerability with strength, tenderness with power, mystery with clarity. She doesn't oscillate between these poles. She is them. She has become the integration, the very goal of individuation. In ancient myth, she would be the oracle, the goddess in the cave who speaks not in answers, but in riddles. And only those who truly listen with their soul understand. She does not live to be understood. She lives in alignment. And when men encounter her energy, they feel the call, not to chase her, but to rise. She does not inspire pursuit. She inspires transformation. And for the unready, that feels like rejection. But for the initiated, it feels like liberation. She no longer finds herself in rooms that drain her, conversations that diminish her, touches that dishonor her, because her body is no longer just flesh, it is temple. Her time is no longer just hours, it is sacred offering. Her love is no longer given in hopes of being loved, it is an overflow of fullness. If she gives it to you, it is not because she needs your presence, it is because she recognizes your frequency. Because something in you has touched the part of her that cannot be fooled. You see, there is no longer a performance. No longer a costume of perfect woman, stitched from approval. She has burned those garments. Now she wears truth. And truth is not always pretty. Sometimes truth is her silence when you expect her to chase. Sometimes truth is her departure when you want one more chance. Sometimes truth is the look in her eyes that tells you everything your words can't explain. Because she has heard every excuse, felt every ghost, survived every betrayal. And still, she chose to keep her heart open, but guarded. Not by walls, but by wisdom. She no longer negotiates her standards. No longer explains her needs. No longer reduces her depth to fit shallow waters. The tide in her has changed. And now, she only swims with those who understand the rhythm of her soul. There is no shame in her solitude. No lack in her singleness. In fact, this is where her radiance comes from, because she is no longer fragmented. She is whole. And wholeness is not loud. It is not flashy. It is quiet, resonant, unshakable. This is why men ache for her. Not because she says the right things or wears the right mask, but because in a world of imitation, she is real. And the soul recognizes what is real, even when the mind denies it. And so she walks, not away from men, but toward herself. Not because she gave up on love, but because she finally understood, love is not what completes her. It is what meets her. And only those who have met themselves can truly meet her. There was a time when she bent herself into versions, softer, smaller, sweeter, just to be wanted. She clipped her wildness, folded her voice, edited her essence to match the idea of desirable. And every time, a piece of her disappeared. But now, she has reclaimed them all. The woman who no longer needs a man is not angry. She is not bitter. She is clear. And clarity has its own gravitational pull. She no longer reaches out hoping someone will pick her. She stands still and watches who dares to come forward with reverence, not hunger. This is the energetic shift that bewilders men. They are used to the chase, to the performative dance where desire is confused with value, where loud confidence masks deep insecurity. But she plays no such game. She does not rise when they call. She listens, instead, to the deeper voice within her, the one that whispers truths most are too afraid to hear. Carl Jung taught that the soul craves wholeness, not perfection. She embodies this teaching, not as theory, but as truth. She is not flawless. She is not always graceful, but she is integrated. Her shadows do not control her, they walk beside her. Her wounds do not define her, they are marked with gold. Men often crave women they can save. It makes them feel strong. It makes them feel needed. But she doesn't need saving. She needs seeing. And this threatens the narrative. Because to see her clearly means confronting your own blindness. To meet her soulfully means meeting your own soul first. And most have not made that journey. Most are still entranced by projections of power, success, dominance. But these illusions dissolve in her presence. She sees the man behind the man. And that gaze either heals you or terrifies you, depending on how much of yourself you've met. Her absence is not punishment. It's protection. She will not stay where the energy asks her to shrink. Where her depth is labeled dramatic. Where her silence is met with suspicion. Where her strength is mistaken for defiance. She has become fluent in the language of energy. She reads the room before words are spoken. And no matter how well a man performs affection, she can feel whether it's clean or a mask for emptiness. And still, she does not close. This is the miracle. After all the heartbreak, after all the distortion, after all the times love meant loss, she has not hardened. She has not turned cold. She has not sworn off intimacy. She has simply chosen discernment. Because love, to her, is not a transaction. It is a mirror. And only when both mirrors are clean, free of projections, distortions, ego, can they reflect something holy. And this is why her love is so rare. It is not designed to complete you. It is designed to reveal you. And revelation requires courage. Many men will confuse her with loneliness. They will say, "She must be hurt." And they're right, but not in the way they think. Yes, she has been hurt. Deeply. But it didn't break her. It woke her. The pain stripped away the illusions. The betrayals burned down the false temples. The silence taught her to hear the voice of her own soul. She has not rejected love. She has refined it. And now, she waits. Not idly. Not longingly. But with presence. With grace. With patience rooted in power. She is no longer the girl hoping someone will choose her. She is the woman who chooses herself every day. And because of that, men feel the pull, not to fix her, not to own her, but to match her. They feel the inadequacy of their own surface. They begin to question their own noise. They begin to wonder, what would it feel like to become the kind of man she could actually feel safe with? And this is where transformation begins. Not in pursuit, but in becoming. She will not reach down to pull you up. She will not slow down to make you comfortable. But she will notice when you rise. She will feel it when you come from truth. And then, only then, might she open. But if she doesn't, she will not explain why. She has already spent lifetimes justifying her choices. Now, she simply walks in alignment. And those who cannot follow, were never meant to. She does not seek validation in eyes that cannot see. She no longer bends her truth to be digestible. She speaks, slowly, deliberately, like a woman who has learned that her words shape worlds. And if a man cannot sit in the stillness of her presence, he is not ready for her storm, or her calm. She is not hard to love. But she is hard to fool. Because when a woman has walked through the fire of her own becoming, she develops a scent for dishonesty. She recognizes the tremble in a man's voice when his mask begins to crack. And she will never again trade her peace for partnership. She will never again choose attention over alignment. Carl Jung spoke of the anima, the feminine within the masculine. And it is only the man who has dared to meet his own feminine depths, who will not run from hers. To love her is to step into a mirror, to see your shadows, and stay, to hear her silence, and not flee, to feel her chaos, and still hold the frame. She is not here to tame herself for your comfort. She is here to remember what it means to be whole. And that remembering will disturb anyone still addicted to fragments. Many will call her too much, too intense, too deep, too mysterious. But those are the words of men who have only touched the shallow edges of their own soul. Men who confuse complexity with complication. Men who think power is loud and control is strength. They are not her people. She moves with quiet certainty now. She no longer explains her distance. She no longer apologizes for her solitude. She no longer performs femininity for the male gaze. Because her feminine is no longer for sale. It is sacred. It flows where it is honored. It blooms where it is understood. It opens where it is safe. And until then, she remains alone, but never lonely. Still, but never stagnant. Silent, but more powerful than ever. She has become the woman who remembers who she is. And in that remembrance, she has become unforgettable. There is a stillness in her presence now. Not the kind that waits for something, but the kind that already knows. She has moved beyond seeking, beyond chasing, beyond needing anyone to complete a circle that was never broken. Because she understands now. The longing she once mistook for love was really a desire to be seen by someone who could not even see themselves. She is no longer angry. no longer bitter. Those were necessary fires, yes. But she has risen from the ash. Not hardened, not armored, but purified. She wears her softness like armor now, not to protect herself, but to remind others. You can be gentle and still command respect. You can be open and still have boundaries. You can love deeply and still walk away when your soul says, enough. She knows the difference now, between chemistry and chaos, between attraction and alignment, between being desired and being honored. You see, when a woman does her shadow work, when she looks at her need for validation, her compulsion to fix, her fear of abandonment, and does not run from what she sees there, she becomes untouchable, not because she is cold, but because she is clear. Clear on what she will and will not allow. Clear on the frequency of connection she will entertain. Clear on the kind of man who will never again have access to her energy. She is no longer seduced by potential. She is not moved by sweet words from men who have never met their own wounds. She watches now, quietly, intuitively, not to judge, but to discern. Because she knows, if a man has not faced his own mother wound, if he is still afraid of his emotions, if he still defines power as domination, then he will not know what to do with a woman who is whole. He will try to shrink her, silence her, control her, or worse, romanticize her, then run from her reality. But she is not here to be idolized. She is here to be met, deeply, consciously, courageously, because it takes courage to love a woman like this. A woman who no longer trades her inner peace for external approval. A woman who knows how to self-source her joy. A woman who looks into your eyes and sees you, not just the version you perform for the world. She is the mirror of the feminine unconscious. And when you stand before her, everything you have avoided within yourself will surface. Do not mistake that reflection for an attack. It is an invitation. She does not want to fix you. She does not want to save you. She wants to see you, but only if you are willing to see yourself. The feminine is not soft because she is weak. She is soft because she is undeniably strong, because she has surrendered to the flow of her own becoming, and in doing so, has become the river that carves stone. She is not impressed by power without presence, by ambition without integrity, by affection without commitment, because she has it all within herself now, and the man who meets her there, not above her, not beneath her, but beside her, he will not try to own her. He will protect her freedom as fiercely as his own, because he knows her freedom does not threaten him. It awakens him. Together, they do not complete each other. They amplify each other. But until that kind of man stands before her, she is content in her solitude, not waiting, choosing, not hoping, knowing, because a woman who has danced with her darkness no longer fears the light. She is the light, and she shines not for attention, but because it is her nature. A woman like that cannot be pursued. She must be invited by a man who has met his own feminine, the anima within. Only then can he hold space for hers. She does not need a man, but the kind of man who has done his own soul work will crave her presence like breath. Because once you have felt the depth of a woman who knows her worth, nothing else tastes the same. And that is why she does not chase. She chooses.